Yeah, I think so. The thing is like with large, let's just say large cap strategies, whether it's growth, value, blend, whatever it is, like they all tend to do they have like similar volatility profiles, similar return profiles. Like of course, like growth has vastly outperformed value, but like there's been times where value has outperformed growth as well. Um, with private investments, like who you choose to manage your money matters so much more because it's not just a ticker on a stock exchange where you can just say, I want 8% or I want 5% the next day. Like that's not how these things work. So how like these managers even select the assets that they're owning inside of these funds vastly changes the return and risk of each one of the different funds. So like choosing between a menu of 7 large cap funds is entirely different than choosing between 7 different private equity funds all investing in, let's just say, primary or co-investments. Completely different, process to actually pick those.
Yeah, and that's where I think people are going to get screwed over. Is
Totally.
like they think, yeah, they think that because it's it's the fund is like next to the fixed income allocation, however somebody goes in and chooses their 401k option, it's going to be like the asset classes are just so different. And that's the reason why, this I think people are um like why, President Trump made this executive order, to give it to the DOL. And my guess is the DOL is just going to go through with it, right? Like
Oh
when you
yeah.
have
Yeah.
Vanguard looking at giving investors the option to put these into plans, like if Vanguard's doing it, the US government is absolutely going to listen. And same with BlackRock, right? Like when they bought HPS, I think that was earlier this year. And I think what I love about this and where I think this makes so much sense is, and again, this is what I wrote about in the article this week, was it just gives people freedom. Like when investors have more choice, like that is undoubtedly a good thing. Of course, when people have more choice, of course there's more ways to go right and there's more ways to go wrong, and that obviously, like the choice is going to be tricky. And I know people are just going to, honestly, like this is just what's going to happen, they're just going to guess wrong, when they
Totally.
look at their but it wouldn't surprise me if there's like guardrails or something where it's like you can put up to 25% of your money in one fund, or in the
Mhm.
alternatives bucket in your 401k. Like I would imagine that's how they're going to get around the concentration risk.
Yeah, I also think, what might end up happening is like the Department of Labor or ERISA, they'll have some more specific guidelines on like the types of funds that can be available into 401k plans. Like funds have to
Yeah.
meet a certain asset minimum, so you're not like dealing with random tiny, hugely speculative like private credit funds, and you're dealing with maybe more of like the big institutions that are just watched more closely by
Hmm.
the SEC or by whoever else. Um, that I think like that will generally be the direction that the DOL will go, because ordinary investors are not going to be, they're not necessarily going to know the difference in all cases. Like they're going to look generally the same.
So if you had, $2 million in your 401k, you're 55, you've done really well, been at the same company for 25 years, and you opened up your plan and you had options to invest in crypto, real estate, private equity, because I'm guessing people are going to have like 3 to 5 options. I would think that's what they would do. How would you go about allocating?
You know, so I certainly would. I think I would like personally. I would build allocations to these things. Like I've got a long time horizon. Like I don't have any need to like.
You're a 55-year-old.
Sorry. Well, even at 55, like you got a pretty long time horizon of 10 years before you really like can even think about drawing money from this. And hopefully, if you've got a big 401k plan, you also have like brokerage assets outside of it where you might not need to touch your 401k until you're 70 or 73,
Hmm.
when you're 75, when you're starting RMDs. Anyway, but like it would certainly start small. I wouldn't like be like, okay, $2 million. all of a sudden there's $200,000 directly into private investments, you know, or 300,000, 100,000 into a private equity, private credit, private real estate fund. This would be like, okay, maybe I'll start new contributions. Like I'm going to allocate 10% of my new contributions toward these types of strategies and just assess how it's actually working and if it's actually like, if it actually feels good, because I
Mhm.
wouldn't want to just like throw a bunch of money in there and then regret it. This is a story of like 401k plans are built to like build assets slowly over time. And because contributions are made every 2 weeks, like it's a pretty easy way just to like slowly build a position there. How would you do it?
Here, here's exactly how I do it. So my first call would be to my advisor. So this is the case where, working with somebody uh, who just oversees more than just 401k. So I'd call my advisor, and if you didn't have an advisor, I would go to the plan sponsor, and I would just I would have a conversation with somebody. Like in this case, I would have an advisor. Be like, what is this thing in plain English? What is this? The second question I would ask is, um, where would I get screwed over?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like what could happen where this would go wrong, right? Um, and then because the answer is going to be way different than an index fund. Like the answer is going to be different, and I think understanding that's what I would want to understand is first, what is this thing? Second, where would I get screwed over? And thirdly, it would be okay. Well, what's the plan to buy in? So I think what I would do is I would probably carve off, I don't know, maybe like a 5 or 10% just chunk immediately. And then what I would do is just like you said, is to uh, re redo the contribution strategies of where the contributions are going and building that position over time. I think where I have seen investments go right and wrong is um, when just investors make a too big of a jump into one or two alternative investments and there was an article yesterday in CNBC. It was about, I think it was like a mid career Wall Street guy. He put, I think it was $400,000 into a company called Yield Street, and he
Mm,
bought two funds or two investments. It was I think they were both had to deal with New York real estate. And
mm.
obviously, if you've been investing for any period of time, like people know that New York real estate is it is
Not
like,
great
well,
currently.
no, it's great. You have the money center on earth. Like there are so many people there. Like it is a great place to park money. That's why they build all those skyscrapers and people in Hong Kong, all over the world. These people, they just buy apartments and they never live in it. So it's like, like New York City real estate, like it is great. Now, I think what you were mentioning, of course, is office space, right? Where office
Yeah.
space, I think, has been in just any major metro has been rough. So this guy, like, he's on Wall Street. It's like, hey, this is a pretty sure investment, right? Like New York City, like you can't just copy and paste New York City and make it. Like no, that is like that is the money center on earth. And anyways, he ended up just getting his clock cleaned. I think he lost like one of the investments. I believe he lost like all of his money. Um, where it was some office building owned by the family office of the WeWork guy, and it was just a total loss. And the article was just pointing out that these air quotes alternative investments, they certainly aren't a sure bet. And I think just from what this article was, I think illuminating and like why they would post this is the democratization of finance and like having these types of investments available to not just to like Wall Street, but to Main Street. It doesn't always go people's way, and I think like it's the return profiles, meaning like how much you can make and how much you can lose, are wider than just public investing.
Yeah, and there's like a couple of these, right? There's Yield Street. Like all of these things are just like they're marketed to retail regular like investors. And they're positioned as like you can own what the 1% owns through our
Hmm.
platform. That's how it's right. So there's Yield Street, there's Masterworks, there's Fundrise, there's
Titan.
what yeah, Titan, that's what I'm thinking. Like there's all of these like democratizing hedge funds democratizing private real estate, and like Yield Street is democratizing like the whole kind of menu of it, democratizing investing in art. But like a lot of those companies are like startup companies built to acquire those asset bases. Like just because they have the assets or have been successful in it, like doesn't mean they're successful investors. And I think like
Mhm.
I'm not saying that like every investment they ever made is bad. I don't think that's true. But like these are the things that like ordinary investors, definitely need to watch out for too, because these things are going to be more prevalent as time goes on as well.
Yeah, and I think of like position sizing. So position sizing is just like what is the investment amount divided by your net worth. And what's tricky with these like democratizing finance types of platforms is they're like invest like the 1%. It's like, well, we definitely work with people who are in that camp, and
Mhm.
um, they give people access, which is great. But what people don't necessarily understand is when you look at somebody who's got like $7 million, they're not putting like 50% of their net worth into one investment.